Marcus never thought his skills as an engineer would bring him face to face with the most powerful being in the Valar Dominion. He had joined the expedition as a repair specialist, a human representative to show cooperation with the galaxy's oldest empire. He expected to fix broken machines, tune engines, and maybe sit quietly in the background while diplomats argued. He never expected to be summoned by the Queen herself. It began on the shining floor of the Great Valar Summit Hall. Human envoys had been invited as observers, still considered a young species among the stars. The hall was massive, its pillars carved from crystal, glowing with energy that made the air hum faintly. Soldiers in sleek armor stood in disciplined rows. At the center, on a raised dais, stood Queen Zylara. Her battle armor was famous, a suit of silver and violet plates that shone like a second skin. She carried herself with calm strength, every movement graceful but heavy with authority. The summit had just begun when the hall shuddered with explosions. Rogue factions, enemies of the Queen, had launched a sudden attack on the capital. Alarms rang. Soldiers moved and blasts struck the shields protecting the chamber. In the confusion, a plasma bolt grazed the Queen. Her armor sparked, a large crack spreading across the chest plate. Though her guards rushed to shield her, she lifted her hand, demanding calm. Her voice, deep and commanding, cut through the chaos. "Bring me the human engineer." Marcus froze when the order echoed through the chamber. At first he thought it was a mistake, but the guards marched toward him, their alien faces unreadable, and guided him to the dais. He stood before the Queen, heart hammering, tools strapped to his belt, unsure what he could possibly do. Her armor was more than just metal. It was alive with streams of light and hidden circuits, pulsing faintly as if the suit had a heartbeat of its own. The crack across her chest exposed layers of machinery no human had ever studied before. Marcus swallowed hard. "Can you repair this?" Zylara asked, her tone calm despite the damage. Marcus almost said no. He was an engineer trained in human ships, not alien royal armor. But something in her steady gaze stopped him. He nodded slowly. "I can try." The Queen tilted her head, and for a moment her lips curved in the faintest smile. She leaned closer, her voice dropping to a whisper meant only for him. "Don't be shy, human." The words struck him strangely. They were not playful but encouraging. A sign of trust. Marcus knelt before her, opening his repair kit. He tried to keep his hand steady as he touched the cracked armor. The metal was smooth, but where it had split, he could see fragments of crystal-like circuits. His scanner whirred, showing power fluctuations. The suit was not just damaged, it was unstable. If the energy core deep inside overloaded, it could harm not only the Queen but everyone nearby. He worked carefully, attaching stabilizers, sealing edges with his plasma welder. The alien guards watched with suspicion, their eyes glowing faintly as they whispered in their own language. Marcus ignored them. He focused on the task, on the fine lines of energy dancing across the armor. The Queen stood perfectly still, letting him work. At times, her gaze drifted to his face as if measuring his determination. She had seen countless warriors and leaders, but humans were still new to her people, young, fragile, and untested. Yet here was one kneeling before her, repairing what even her elite attendants could not touch. As Marcus adjusted a stabilizer, he noticed something strange. Beneath the armor's surface was not just metal and crystal. It was hiding a small sphere of radiant energy, glowing with patterns that seemed alive. His scanner struggled to interpret it, showing strange readings. It was not just a power source. It was something far more advanced, something beyond human understanding. He hesitated, glancing up at the Queen, but her eyes, calm and watchful, told him to continue. Minutes stretched into an hour as Marcus worked. Sweat trickled down his neck, but he did not stop. He remembered training back on Earth. His teachers always said human engineers were problem solvers, thinkers who found answers where others gave up. That memory gave him strength. At last, the crack was sealed. The armor's glow returned, brighter and steadier. The energy core stabilized. Marcus exhaled in relief, stepping back. "It should hold now," he said quietly. The Queen lifted her arm, flexing the plates as if testing them. The armor hummed, smooth and whole again. She looked at Marcus, her expression unreadable for a long moment. Then she spoke, her voice carrying through the chamber. "This human has saved his Queen," she declared. The hall fell silent. The alien guards, once doubtful, now stared at Marcus with something close to respect. The human envoys in the background exchanged astonished glances. Marcus felt his face grow warm, but he bowed his head. He had only done his job, yet he could not shake the image of that glowing core inside the armor, nor the way the Queen had leaned close to whisper those strange words. The summit resumed after the attack was repelled, but the memory stayed with him. The Queen had trusted him in her moment of weakness, and he had succeeded. But questions burned in his mind. What was that energy hidden inside her armor? Why was it so important that even her own people could not touch it? As he packed away his tools, Marcus knew one thing with certainty. This was only the beginning. Humanity's role in the galaxy had just taken its first unexpected step. The Queen's words still echoed in Marcus's mind long after the summit ended. This human has saved his Queen. He had only been repairing a suit, yet the effect of his work rippled through the hall like a wave. For the first time, humans were not seen as mere visitors. They were seen as capable allies, but respect from the Queen's soldiers was not easily won. As Marcus walked through the corridors of the Valor capital, armored guards followed close behind. Their glowing eyes studied his every movement. They did not speak, but he could feel their doubt. To them, he was still fragile, small, and inexperienced. They saw him as an outsider trusted too quickly by their Queen. Marcus ignored their cold stares. He was an engineer, not a warrior. He found comfort in his tools, in wires and panels, in solving problems no one else dared touch. And now he was carrying a heavy secret, the glowing energy core hidden inside the Queen's armor. That night, the Queen summoned him again. Her chamber was vast, decorated with banners of silver and violet. Energy crystals floated in the air like lanterns, filling the room with a soft glow. The Queen sat on a throne carved from living stone, her armor gleaming after his repair. When Marcus entered, she dismissed her guards. They hesitated, but she raised a hand and they obeyed. Soon only the two of them remained. "You saw it, didn't you?" she asked softly. Marcus hesitated. He remembered the sphere of radiant light inside her chest plate, alive with strange patterns. "Yes," he admitted. "What is it?" The Queen's eyes narrowed, but not with anger. Instead, it was sadness. She stood and walked closer, her armor moving silently. "It is called the Heartstone. It is the life of my people. Without it, the Valor Dominion would wither." Marcus blinked in surprise. "And you carry it inside your armor?" "Yes," she replied. "It was forged in the age of our ancestors, a gift from the stars themselves. It powers our fleets, heals our lands, and protects our throne. But it is unstable. Each generation of queens carries the Heartstone, binding themselves to its power. Few outsiders know of it. None have ever touched it until you." Marcus felt a chill. "Then why trust me?" The Queen leaned closer, her voice low but steady. "Because you see differently. My engineers are skilled, but they follow the same patterns, the same traditions. You looked at the fracture, and instead of fear, you saw a problem to solve. That is why I whispered those words. I needed you not to doubt yourself." Her gaze softened. "And you did not fail me." Marcus's chest tightened. He had repaired many machines, but never something tied so closely to the fate of an entire people. He felt both honored and overwhelmed. Before he could respond, the chamber doors burst open. Guards rushed in, their armor dented and burned. One fell to a knee. "Your Majesty, the rebels are here." They strike again, this time inside the capital. The Queen's expression hardened. She turned to Marcus. "Stay close. You will see why the Heartstone is both a gift and a curse." The palace shook with distant explosions as the Queen marched out, Marcus running at her side. Through the halls he saw flashes of battle, soldiers clashing with rogue attackers, energy bolts tearing through crystal walls. The rebels wore dark armor, marked with red lines that pulsed like fire. They fought with desperate fury, as if determined to reach the Queen no matter the cost. At the gates of the inner sanctum, the Queen's armor flared to life. The Heartstone glowed from within, sending streams of violet energy across her body. With a sweep of her arm, she released a shield that deflected a storm of enemy fire. Her guards surged forward, striking back with renewed strength. Marcus stood in awe. The suit he had repaired, powered by the Heartstone, turned the Queen into a force of nature. Yet even as she fought, he noticed the crack he had sealed pulsing faintly. The Heartstone was stable but fragile. If damaged again, the consequences could be catastrophic. The rebels pushed harder. One of them, taller and stronger than the rest, carried a weapon shaped like a hooked lance. He aimed it directly at the Queen's chest. "Now," the rebel shouted. The weapon fired a stream of red energy that struck her squarely in the armor. The shield shattered, sparks flying. The queen staggered and the faint crack widened once more. Marcus's instincts screamed. Without thinking, he dashed forward, pulling a tool from his belt. While the queen blocked another strike with her blade, Marcus slammed the stabilizer against the glowing fracture. Energy hissed and the armor steadied, holding just long enough for the queen to strike down her attacker. The battle turned. With their leader fallen, the rebels retreated, dragging their wounded back into the shadows. The queen's soldiers gave chase, but she raised her hand. Let them run. They have seen our strength. The hall grew silent again. Smoke curled through broken pillars and the floor was littered with scorch marks. The queen looked down at Marcus, who was still kneeling, breathless, his stabilizer pressed against her chest plate. He pulled it away carefully and the armor's glow steadied once more. "You risked yourself," she said. "I just did what needed to be done." Marcus answered, his voice trembling. Her eyes softened again, just as they had in the throne room. "This is why your people may yet shape the stars. You do not measure risk the way others do. You act. You adapt." Marcus lowered his gaze, unsure how to respond. He was just an engineer. Yet somehow the fate of a queen and her empire rested on his hands. The queen straightened, her armor humming with power. She raised her voice so the guards could hear. "This human has stood beside me in battle. From this day he is under my protection." The soldiers bowed in silence. Their earlier suspicion was gone. Now their eyes held respect. Marcus felt the weight of their stares. He was no longer invisible, no longer just a repairman. He was part of something far greater, but deep inside he could not forget the sight of the Heartstone, glowing like a living star, fragile yet powerful. He wondered how many more times he would have to risk everything to keep it safe, and what would happen if one day he failed. That night, as he lay in his chamber within the palace walls, he could not sleep. The echoes of battle rang in his ears and the queen's words lingered in his mind. "You act. You adapt." For the first time, Marcus began to wonder if humanity's true strength was not in weapons or numbers, but in the simple, stubborn courage to face the impossible and repair it. The days after the rebel attack passed in tense silence. The capital was rebuilding, but everyone knew the war was not finished. The rebels had failed to capture the queen, yet they would return. And this time, they would not stop until the Heartstone itself was destroyed or stolen. Marcus stayed inside the palace, working on the queen's armor whenever called. He studied its systems late into the night, sketching designs on sheets of digital parchment. The Heartstone was powerful, but the armor that contained it was fragile. He could not shake the image of that growing crack, of energy flickering at the edge of collapse. He knew one thing. If the Heartstone shattered, the Valor Dominion would fall. And perhaps the galaxy with it. One evening, the queen herself came to the workshop. She stood silently for a long time, watching Marcus adjust circuits and polish stabilizers. At last she spoke. "You do not rest," she said. Marcus looked up, blinking tired eyes. "Neither does the Heartstone." Her lips curved slightly, almost a smile. She walked closer, the faint glow of her armor lighting the room. "The rebels will strike soon. My scouts say they gather their fleets. They know my armor is weak. They know I depend on you." Marcus set down his tool, his chest heavy with worry. "If they attack with full force, your armor will not last. I can patch it again and again, but—" He hesitated. "What you need is not repair. You need something new." The queen tilted her head. "New?" Marcus nodded, heart racing. "Back on Earth, we learned something. When a design keeps failing, we do not cling to it. We break it apart, rebuild it, make it stronger. If you let me, I can redesign your armor around the Heartstone. Not just repair it, make it better." The queen studied him in silence. At last, she placed a hand on his shoulder. "Then do it, human. Show me the strength of your people." The following days became a blur of work. Marcus pulled apart circuits, rewired systems, and added layers of reinforcement. He did not have the tools of a Valor Master engineer, but he had imagination. He used what was available: broken parts from old suits, fragments of rebel weapons, even human tools brought from Earth. The alien guards watched with quiet respect as Marcus bent rules no Valar would ever break. Where they saw tradition, he saw opportunity. Where they feared failure, he saw possibility. At last, the new armor stood complete. It was not perfect, not polished like the original, but it was strong. Energy flowed through new channels. Stabilizers redirected pressure, and the Heartstone rested inside a cradle of reinforced plating. When the Queen put it on, the armor glowed brighter than before. She flexed her arm and the air hummed with power. "You have changed it," she said. Marcus bowed his head. "I made it human." The Queen's eyes shone with something he could not name. "Then let us see if humanity can save a world." The rebel fleet came like a storm. Ships dark as night filled the skies, firing red beams that lit the heavens. The capital shook as shields flared and towers crumbled. The Valor army fought bravely, but the rebels pressed hard, determined to break through. At the palace gates, the Queen stood with her soldiers. Marcus was at her side, clutching a small control device linked to the armor's new systems. His hands trembled, but his mind was steady. The rebels surged forward, their leader shouting for the Heartstone. The Queen stepped into their path, her armor blazing with violet light. "Come then," she declared. "See what power remains." The battle began. The rebels struck with lances of fire, but the Queen's new armor absorbed the blows, redirecting the energy into glowing shields. She moved like lightning, every strike of her blade bursting with energy channeled through the Heartstone. Her soldiers rallied behind her, their courage renewed by her strength. Marcus stood behind the line, monitoring the armor's systems. Numbers flashed across his screen: stability, power levels, pressure points. The armor was holding, but barely. The rebels pushed harder, their weapons tearing at the shields. Then, disaster struck. A massive war engine, taller than the palace itself, lumbered forward. Its cannons glowed with red light aimed directly at the Queen. Marcus's scanner screamed warnings. "The Heartstone would not survive such a blast. Majesty!" he shouted. "I can reroute the armor, but you must trust me." Without hesitation, the Queen nodded. "Do it!" Marcus's fingers flew across the control device. He bypassed safety lines, overcharged the stabilizers, and redirected every bit of excess energy into one channel. The armor began to glow brighter, brighter still, until it was almost blinding. The war engine fired. The beam struck the Queen head-on. For a moment it seemed she would be crushed, but then the armor flared with violet fire, absorbing the blast and turning it into a wave of pure energy. With a cry that shook the battlefield, the Queen raised her blade and released the power in a single strike. The beam of violet light cut through the war engine, splitting it in two. The machine collapsed, flames erupting as the rebels screamed in shock. Their courage broke. Leaderless and defeated, they fled into the skies, their fleet scattering. The battlefield fell silent. Smoke curled upward, but the Queen still stood tall, her armor shining like a star. Marcus collapsed to his knees, exhausted but smiling. His design had worked. Humanity's way of breaking rules, of rebuilding stronger, had saved the day. The Queen walked to him, her footsteps heavy but sure. She extended a hand, lifting him to his feet. Her voice was strong but softer than before. "You have given my people victory. You have given me hope. Humanity is no longer a child among the stars. Today you stand as our equal." The soldiers bowed, and even the alien envoys who once doubted humans lowered their heads in respect. Marcus felt a warmth in his chest. He had not wielded a sword nor fired a weapon. Yet through his mind, his hands, and his stubborn will to fix the unfixable, he had changed the fate of a galaxy. As the Queen turned to address her people, she leaned closer to him, her voice just for his ears. "Don't be shy. Human," she whispered. "This is your victory too." Marcus looked up at the stars above the smoking city. For the first time, he believed it.
Humanity's place was not at the edge of the galaxy, watching others.
It was here, standing side by side with queens and empires ready to shape the future.